I'm shaking right now, like full body tremors trying to type this out. NGL, I never thought I'd be on a throwaway account spilling my guts. But here we are. My name's Ethan Miller, 38, spent 12 years with Holly. We had this perfect little family, 2 kids, a house, the whole damn dream, until Grace found something in my nightstand that blew my entire world apart. I met Sarah Jenkins a couple weeks ago. She was an old high school friend I hadn't seen in years, but we ran into each other after the trial. Yeah, the trial. NGL, I was still pretty raw, shaking most of the time, feeling numb, like I was living outside my own body. Sarah's a reporter now, one of those investigative types. She heard whispers about my situation, and when we talked, she offered to tell my story. Said it would be an exclusive, that she'd make sure I was protected. IDK, part of me wanted to keep it buried, but another part just needed it out, needed someone to really hear it. So I agreed. This is what I told her. It all started really with Mark Peterson. He was my best friend, had been since grade school. We practically grew up together. We both went into the military, but Mark got discharged early because of an injury. Nothing too serious, but enough to send him home while I was still deployed. When I finally came back, married Holly Cooper, and started building our life, Mark was always there. He was like family. We'd hang out, go fishing, the usual guy stuff. He even moved into the guest house we had on our property a few years back. Said he needed a quiet place to get his head straight after a bad breakup. It felt normal, like family. Holly and I had a good run, or so I thought. 12 years of marriage. 2 kids, Caleb and Grace. They were my world. My deployment finished, I came home, and we settled into this picture-perfect life. After Grace was born, though, something shifted. Holly started pushing really hard for me to get a vasectomy. She said 2 kids were enough, that she was done. I mean, I love my kids, but she was really insistent. It felt off, like a red flag I ignored at the time. TBH, I was just happy to be home, settled, doing the dad thing. I agreed. Didn't think much of it, just another step in building our future. But then, as Caleb and Grace grew, I started seeing it. Little things at first, then impossible to ignore. They looked like Mark. Not just a little, like a family friend, but a lot. Caleb has Mark's exact dark eyes and that little dimple when he smiles. Grace, she's got his specific shade of reddish-brown hair, that same slight curl at the ends. My family, we're all fair-skinned, lighter hair, blue eyes. It was like looking at miniature versions of my best friend, not my kids. I tried to gaslight myself, telling myself it was genetics, a random fluke, whatever. But deep down, a cold dread started to set in. I showed Sarah a picture I had saved on my phone. It was from a fishing trip, a few years back. Holly, Mark, and Caleb. Mark was holding up a fish, grinning like an idiot. Caleb was right there beside him, looking up, beaming. And Holly, she was standing close, her hand resting on Mark's shoulder. Sarah zoomed in without me even asking. Her reporter's eye caught it instantly. Ethan, she said, her left hand, where's her wedding ring? My heart stopped. I'd never noticed. NGL, I spent all my time looking at Mark, at Caleb. But Sarah was right. Holly wasn't wearing her rings. Not her engagement ring, not my great-grandmother's ring, which was her wedding band. Both gone. That's when the memory hit me hard, a few months before the entire world imploded. I was away for a training exercise. My daughter Grace called me, really upset. She said she'd found my wedding ring and my great-grandmother's ring. The ones Holly always wore, but they weren't on Holly's finger. Grace had found them, just sitting there in an old ashtray on my nightstand. She'd even sent me a picture. Right there, next to the rings, were 2 cigarette butts. Mark smoked. I didn't. Holly hated smoking. I remember my voice shaking when I talked to Grace. Sweetie, can you do something for Daddy? I asked. I told her to put them in a padded envelope, mail them to me. She was confused, but she did it. I kept them with me, a heavy secret in my duffel bag, through weeks of training. Every time I looked at them, that cold dread got colder, turning into a burning fury. When I finally got back home, the first thing I noticed was the tension. Holly was stressed, frantic, constantly searching for something. She even had Mark helping her, turning the house upside down. Have you seen my rings, babe? She'd ask me, casual as hell, but her eyes were wild. I can't believe I lost them. Mark just stood there, looking at the floor uncomfortable. I watched them for a day, just letting them tear the house apart. Then, that night, after the kids were asleep, I found Holly in the kitchen, still pacing. Her eyes were red. "I'm so sorry, Ethan," she mumbled. "I don't know where they could be." I just looked at her. My voice was calm, too calm. "Are these what you're looking for, Holly?" I asked, pulling the small velvet pouch out of my pocket. I poured them out onto the kitchen counter. My wedding band, my great-grandmother's ring. They clinked as they hit the marble. Holly just stared at them, her face draining of all color. She looked at me, then back at the rings, then back to me. Stunned, speechless. "Ethan," she whispered, and then the tears came, thick and fast. "I love you. You know I love you." But I didn't. Not anymore. I just knew. That night, after Holly's fake tears, I barely slept. My mind was racing a million miles an hour. The kids looked like Mark, the rings, Mark always being around. It all clicked into place, but I needed proof. Hard, undeniable proof. Not just for me, but for what I knew I was going to have to do. First step, DNA. Getting Caleb's and Grace's DNA was surprisingly easy, and yet it felt like the most messed up thing I'd ever done. One morning while they were at school, I grabbed their toothbrushes, swapped them out for new ones. I wiped down the old ones, sealed them in separate bags. Then a few nights later, I found a couple of strands of hair in Caleb's brush. And Grace, she always leaves a few on her pillow. Just a few strands, a couple of quick swabs from the inside of their old toothbrushes. It felt cold, calculated, violating, but I had to know. The trembling in my hands was getting worse. I felt like a damn spy in my own home. Then there was Mark. He had his usual Sunday visit. He'd come over, watch the game, drink a few beers, then usually pass out on the couch for an hour or so before heading back to the guest house. This Sunday I waited, watched him doze off, snoring lightly. My heart was pounding like a drum. I went into the bathroom, grabbed a fresh cotton swab, walked back out, casual as I could be. When Holly was in the kitchen, I leaned over the back of the couch. "Hey, buddy, you good?" He just grunted. Quick as lightning, I slid the swab in, a quick rub on his inner cheek, then pulled it out. My stomach lurched. He didn't even stir. Sealed it up, heart still hammering. I own a computer repair shop, so I have a lot of contacts. One of my clients is a lab in Dallas that does all sorts of genetic testing. I called them, played it cool, said I had some forensic samples for a sensitive personal matter, stressed the need for discretion. They understood. Over 2-day shipping, those tiny damning samples were on their way. While I waited for those results to come back, an NGL, that week felt like a year. I went full-on black ops. My tech background came in handy. I spent a small fortune online, ordered every piece of surveillance gear you could imagine. Tiny motion-activated cameras that looked like USB chargers. Micro-audio recorders that fit into the back of picture frames. Little devices that could mirror cell phone activity. I was building a case, brick by agonizing brick. I spent hours setting it all up. My home server, usually for family photos and backups, became my central hub. Everything was configured to record there, with a secure, encrypted backup to a cloud service. I wanted redundancy. I wanted everything. I wanted no way out for them. The perfect opportunity came when Holly went on one of her long shopping trips. She'd be gone for hours. I moved fast, my hands shaking but my movements precise. A camera in the living room, hidden in the entertainment center, pointed right at the couch. Another in the kitchen. Audio recorders everywhere in the bedroom, the den, even the guest bathroom. I put the cell phone mirroring software on Holly's phone and Mark's phone while they were charging, easy enough for someone who builds computers for a living. Every common area, every place where they might be alone was covered. It felt disgusting, invading my own home like that, but the anger was a cold fire now, burning off any guilt. Then a week later, the email dropped. It came to my work email, encrypted, just like I'd asked. The subject line was nondescript, but my hands were sweating as I opened it. I remember the screen blurring for a second. The report was concise, clinical. Genetic marker analysis. Subject 1, Caleb Miller. Subject 2, Grace Miller. Subject 3, Mark Peterson. Conclusion, A99. Untouchable probability exists that Mark Peterson is the biological father of both Caleb Miller and Grace Miller. 99.9%, my kids. My beautiful kids. Marks, it felt like a physical blow. The air left my lungs. My entire body went numb. Caleb was 16, Grace was 12. That meant this affair, this sick, twisted betrayal, had been going on for at least 16 years, before Caleb was even conceived. Before Holly and I were married, for sure. Or right at the very beginning. My whole damn marriage, my entire adult life with Holly, was a lie, a complete, total fabrication. I was so goddamn clueless. All those years, all those I love yous, all the intimacy, it was all a performance for her, a cover for what she was doing with my best friend. The thought made me want to puke. I never once suspected her of infidelity. Not once. She played the part of a loving wife and mother so well, it was chilling. The sheer depth of her deception was suffocating. I sat there staring at the screen, the rage building into a silent roar. The paternity was confirmed. Now I just needed to watch, to see the lies unfold in real time. The cameras were rolling. I saw the motion sensor ping in my bedroom. My stomach dropped to my feet. I logged into my home server remotely, my hands shaking so bad I almost dropped my laptop. The live feed loaded and my breath hitched. It was them, Holly and Mark, walking into my bedroom. My heart was pounding, a drum solo of pure dread. They were talking, laughing, acting like it was their own damn house, like it was their bedroom. And then they got into my bed, the bed I shared with my wife, the bed where I'd held my kids. I watched, numb and detached, as Holly sat on the edge of the bed, a smirk on her face. She pulled off her wedding rings, both of them, my wedding band, my great-grandmother's ring, and with a flick of her wrist, she tossed them into the ashtray on my nightstand, the same ashtray Grace had found them in. Mark was standing there watching her. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a cigarette. He lit it, took a deep drag, a smug smile spreading across his face. Then he leaned over, his eyes on Holly, and deliberately, slowly extinguished the glowing tip of his cigarette right on my great-grandmother's ring. The smell of burning plastic and metal filled the silent video feed. Holly just watched, no reaction. Then she had her voice dripping with venom. To hell with him and his great-grandmother's ring. That was it. That was the moment. NGL, the blood drained from my face, my whole body seized up. I had to fast forward through the rest of that particular footage. My brain just couldn't process the visual of them together. In my bed. The infidelity was confirmed. Graphically, sickeningly confirmed. My great-grandmother's ring, a family heirloom, used as an ashtray for his cigarette. The disrespect. The utter contempt. I could barely breathe, but I knew there would be more. There was always pillow talk. And I was right. I skipped ahead, dreading what I would hear, but compelled to find out everything. And that's when it went from a devastating betrayal to a full-blown horror show. A real doomsdayer. They were lying there afterward, tangled in my sheets, talking in hushed tones. Holly was stroking Mark's hair, her voice soft, almost playful. "I'm pregnant again, baby." My blood ran cold. The words echoed in my head. Pregnant again. Mark's reaction wasn't what you'd expect. He didn't look happy. His face tightened. "What? Pregnant? Holly, are you serious? What about your pills? Did you take them?" His voice was laced with anger, frustration. Holly sighed, a little exasperated. "Oh, maybe I missed a day or two. IDK. You know I hate taking them." Then she looked at him, defiant. "Besides, you're the one who hates condoms, Mark. You said you never wanted to use them. You know the rules, no rubbers." He just grunted, turning away from her. "Yeah, but I didn't mean this." "What this?" she snapped back, a sharp edge to her voice. "You're going to be a daddy again, Mark. Don't you want another baby with me?" Another baby. Another one of his. With my wife. It felt like my skull was splitting open. This wasn't just an affair. This was an entire secret life. Then Holly's voice dropped. Almost a whisper, but the microphone caught every chilling syllable. "IDK, Mark. Maybe it's time we just make him disappear. People die, you know. Accidents happen. My heart stopped. She said it so casually, so calmly, like she was talking about picking up milk from the store. My wife, the mother of my children, plotting to kill me with my best friend. I sat there in that hotel room in Oklahoma City, staring at the screen, unable to move. My entire world had just shattered, and now it was actively trying to kill me. The rage, the terror, the profound despair. It was an overwhelming tidal wave. They weren't just betraying me. They were plotting my murder, and I had it all on tape. The surveillance became my life. I was always checking, always watching. And it got worse. The accident talk wasn't a one-off. I caught multiple conversations where Holly and Mark were throwing around ideas, talking about how to best make it look like something tragic had happened to me. They were disgusting, cold-blooded. It was like they were planning a dinner party, not a murder. My own wife, my best friend. IDK, the level of betrayal was so deep, it felt like I was drowning. Then I stumbled on something else that made my stomach churn. In one of their late-night talks, Mark was complaining about Holly's carelessness. He grumbled about having to pay for another one of your messes. Holly shot back, "Well, it's not my fault you don't use protection." And Mark said something that still makes me sick to my core. "I've paid for enough of your abortions, Holly. I'm not doing it again." Abortions, multiple, paid for by Mark, while she was married to me. The thought made me physically ill. All those years, all those times she said she was sick or had to go out with friends, those were probably clinic visits. And Mark, my best friend, was her partner in this. He was paying to get rid of their children, while she pretended my children were mine. But it got even more twisted. Mark, in another conversation, made it crystal clear where his loyalties lay. "Look, Holly," he said, his voice flat, "I'm not the marrying kind, you know that. I'm only in this for what Ethan provides. The money, the house, the easy life. That's it." My blood ran cold. It wasn't just about sex or some twisted love. It was about money, my money. That's when I switched gears. My tech skills, which I'd used to set up the surveillance, now became my weapon for financial forensics. I started digging into everything, our joint bank accounts, credit cards, investment portfolios. Then I brought in my search. It didn't take long. Hidden accounts, secret credit cards, all in Holly's name, that I knew nothing about. Large, unexplained withdrawals from our joint savings, transfers to these hidden accounts. I cross-referenced dates with Mark's known activities, his sudden unexplained purchases, new toys, clothes. It wasn't hard to connect the dots. They were siphoning off my money systematically. For years, they were robbing me blind. The surveillance also started picking up other weird things. Mark was using the guest house and sometimes even my main house when I was gone for meetings with shady-looking strangers. They'd come and go at odd hours, quick exchanges, hushed voices. IDK, what exactly was going on? But remembering the secluded stretch of road near my house and the kind of characters Mark was attracting, I had a terrifying suspicion. Drugs. Mark was dealing, and he was using my property, my family home, as his base of operations. The risk to my children, to their safety, was astronomical. Then came the final gut-wrenching realization. Pieces of artwork, antique furniture, valuable jewelry, my grandmother's pearl necklace, my grandfather's watch, things that had been in my family for generations. They were slowly disappearing. Not stolen, but moved. Holly was systematically selling off our assets, my family heirlooms, undoubtedly funneling the cash into those secret accounts or giving it to Mark. She was liquidating my life. This wasn't just an affair anymore. This was a full-blown conspiracy. Adultery, paternity fraud, financial fraud, embezzlement, drug dealing, and oh yeah, attempted murder. They weren't just having sex. They were actively plotting to ruin me, take everything I had, and then get rid of me. My focus shifted from just documenting to building an ironclad case. Every video clip, every audio recording, every financial transaction, every detail was meticulously documented, dated, timestamped, and cross-referenced. I was building a dossier that would leave no room for doubt. I made multiple copies of all the digital evidence, saving them to external drives, encrypting them, and storing them in various secure off-site locations. No way were they going to delete my evidence. The anger was cold now, precise. My hands didn't shake with fear, but with a fierce determination. I had everything I needed. The time for grieving was over. The time for action had begun. I started planning my next steps, consulting silently with a legal expert I trusted. I needed an airtight case, one that would guarantee they got everything they deserved. I reached out to David, a lawyer I knew from a previous business deal, a sharp guy, no nonsense. I laid it all out for him, the DNA results, the ring incident, the surveillance footage of the affair, the pregnancy confession, the abortion history, the murder plot, the financial fraud, the drug dealing. I played him selected clips, showed him the financial spreadsheets. My hands were steady, my voice calm, but inside I was a coiled spring. David just sat there listening, taking notes. When I finished, he leaned back, a grim look on his face. "Ethan," he said, "you have an exceptionally strong case. For divorce, full custody, and significant financial restitution. Potentially criminal charges too, if the authorities get involved with the murder plot." He confirmed what I already knew, but hearing it from him, a professional, made it real. Then he gave me crucial advice. "Your internal surveillance is great for your own information, but for court, we need external, legally admissible evidence. You need to hire a private investigator, someone discreet who can document their movements outside the house, their meetings, their activities." So I did it. I hired a PI named Sarah. No, not that Sarah. A different one. This Sarah was a veteran, ex-law enforcement. Tough as nails, as quiet and as a shadow. I gave her everything I had. Photos of Holly and Mark, their typical routines, their cars, the guest house. I focused her on their movements, their meetings, any illicit activities. I told her about my suspicions of drug dealing and the murder plot. I needed her to get hard evidence. It didn't take Sarah long. Within days, she was confirming everything. The affair, obviously, was easy to spot. She provided photos of them together in public, holding hands, kissing, acting like a couple. But then she started documenting Mark's shady meetings. Parking lots, back alleys, quick handoffs. She even got pictures of Holly present at some of these, standing lookout or just waiting in the car. "Ethan," Sarah reported, her voice flat over the phone. "Mark Peterson is definitely connected to local criminal elements. I've cross-referenced some of the faces I've seen him with. They're known players, petty drug traffickers mostly, but some with violent backgrounds." My stomach clenched. My fear about the drug dealing was validated. And it wasn't just Mark. Holly was actively participating. Sarah also provided photos of Holly and Mark meeting in remote, secluded locations, places away from prying eyes, where they would likely discuss their plans without fear of being overheard. The conspiracy was deepening, becoming more complex, more dangerous. It also explained some of the things Mark had said on my recordings about his pill-dealing buddies. It wasn't just small-time stuff. Sarah found out that some of Mark's associates had already been arrested by local authorities for distribution. This was a real criminal enterprise, not just a few guys messing around. And my family home was smack in the middle of it. That's when the physical threat became intensely real. Not just the murder plot, but the danger of Mark's criminal connections. If they found out I was onto them, or if his associates thought I was a threat, my kids could be caught in the crossfire. My house wasn't just my home anymore. It was a target. I went into full-on defense mode. More external cameras, motion-activated floodlights, reinforced locks on every door and window. I even installed a panic button system connected to an alarm service. Every creak, every shadow made my heart jump. My life had become a constant state of hypervigilance. I also finally had to tell my parents. It was one of the hardest conversations of my life. My mom cried. My dad just looked at me, his face pale. I explained the whole situation. The DNA, the affair, the money, the murder plot, the drug dealing. I didn't want to scare them, but they needed to understand the gravity of the situation, especially for Caleb and Grace. They instantly offered to have the kids stay with them indefinitely. I knew they'd be safe there, shielded from the immediate fallout. That was my priority, protecting my children from both Holly and Mark. Their safety was non-negotiable. As if things couldn't get worse, Sarah called me with another update. They're accelerating, she said. Holly and Mark, they're liquidating more assets fast. A boat, an ATV, some more of your antique furniture. They're emptying out your life, Ethan. It was a race against time. NGL, this whole thing was a nightmare, and I felt like I was losing my mind, but I wasn't going to let them win. Stick around to the end to see how life's costly choices unfold for all of us. David advised me on the perfect day, a Sunday. Mark always came over on Sundays. He'd be there, on my property with Holly. That was the target. Before that day, I systematically emptied out anything of value from the house that hadn't already been stolen. All my important documents, my military medals, family photos, my personal valuables, all secured in a safe deposit box or at my parents' house. I also made sure Caleb and Grace were firmly settled with my parents, with no return date. Their safety was paramount. To keep them complacent, I played dumb. I'd act slightly off, distant, but never accusatory. NGL, it was hard as hell. I had to pretend everything was normal, even as I heard their vile plans on the recordings. I even left some documents out, seemingly by accident, that suggested I was planning a long business trip, something that would give them an opportunity to act without me around. I wanted them to feel secure to make one last mistake. While I was doing that, David and I were also making plans with law enforcement. We had enough on Mark regarding the drug dealing and his criminal associates to get their attention. The PI's reports, combined with my own surveillance and financial records, built a strong case. I compiled a definitive timeline of Holly and Mark's affair, the financial fraud, and their chilling conspiracy against me. Every date, every transaction, every damning word. I also prepared a detailed report on Mark's involvement in the local drug trade. The PI had done excellent work, getting photos and intel on his network. But then, a truly horrifying piece of evidence came in from the PI. Mark, caught on a remote audio recording, boasting to one of his associates about his pull with local officials. He hinted at being able to make things disappear. That sent a fresh wave of panic through me. Was law enforcement compromised? Was this going to be harder than I thought? David said it just meant we had to be smarter, hit harder. My lawyer, David, drafted the divorce petition. It wasn't just about infidelity, it was a full-blown indictment. Adultery, egregious financial fraud, embezzlement, and severe endangerment of children. He also prepared an emergency motion for full temporary custody of Caleb and Grace, citing Holly's involvement in criminal activity and her negligence, explicitly outlining the paternity fraud and the murder plot. He included transcripts of their conversations. There would be no denying it. Every piece of digital evidence, all those hours of video and audio, was backed up multiple times on multiple encrypted drives, stored off-site, in places even I couldn't access without a key. I had to ensure that if anything happened to me, or if they tried to destroy the evidence, it would still exist. I even had a contingency plan. If Holly or Mark somehow discovered my investigation prematurely, I had a dead man's switch. An anonymous email would go to multiple news outlets, to David, to the FBI, with a link to all the encrypted evidence and a full explanation. I wasn't going to let them silence me. Mentally, I was a wreck, but I had to compartmentalize. The emotional fallout, the public scrutiny, the sheer messiness of it all, I knew it would be brutal. People would talk, my kids would hear things, but there was no other way. This was about justice. It was about protecting my children. It was about reclaiming my life. I steeled myself. The chosen day was Sunday. The day Mark always came over. It was the last weekend before I was supposedly going on that long business trip. The perfect storm. The trap was set. I was in the den, working on my laptop when I heard the sirens. My heart hammered against my ribs. A wild drum, but I forced myself to stay calm. The unmarked cars pulled up first, followed by two uniformed police cruisers. My lawyer, David, was already outside, speaking to the lead detective. It was all happening. Law enforcement officers, several of them, moved quickly. They approached Mark, who was still on the couch, half asleep after his usual Sunday beer. He looked up, confused, then his eyes widened in panic as he saw the badges. They cuffed him right there in my living room. "Mark Peterson," the lead officer said, "you're under arrest for drug trafficking, conspiracy, and other charges. You have the right to remain silent." Mark struggled, protesting, shouting, but it was useless. They hauled him out, past a stunned Holly, who had just walked in from the kitchen with a plate of cookies. Her jaw dropped. Then a process server stepped forward and handed Holly a stack of papers. "Holly Cooper," he stated, "you have been served with divorce papers and an emergency temporary custody order for Caleb and Grace Miller. You are also served with a temporary restraining order, effective immediately." Her face went from confusion to utter horror. She looked at the papers, then at Mark being put into the back of a police car, then at me. Her eyes were wild, frantic, as if she was seeing me for the first time. "Ethan, what is this? What have you done?" Her voice rose, becoming shrill, a mix of shock and pure, explosive anger. "What are you talking about? My kids? What about my kids?" David stepped forward. "Mrs. Cooper, Mr. Miller is aware of your affair with Mark Peterson, the paternity of Caleb and Grace, your financial fraud, and your discussions regarding his demise. You are to leave the premises immediately. The restraining order prohibits you from returning or having any contact with Mr. Miller or the children." Her face crumbled. The color drained from her cheeks, leaving her pale and blotchy. "No, you can't. This is my house. You can't do this." She launched herself at me, but an officer gently but firmly intercepted her. She started screaming, cursing, her carefully constructed facade crumbling into a horrifying mess. They escorted her off the property, still yelling, as Mark's police car sped away. The house fell silent, filled only with the echoes of her screams. I walked through the quiet rooms, my home, which suddenly felt alien. My kids, Caleb and Grace, were with my parents. That was the most important thing. I called them, my voice still shaking. I had to tell them something gentle yet firm. "Hey guys," I started, trying to sound calm. "Daddy's here. I just wanted to let you know that Mom and Uncle Mark have done some really bad things. Things that mean they can't be around us for a while. But you are safe, okay? You're with Grandma and Grandpa, and I love you more than anything. I'll explain more when you're older, but right now you are safe, and that's all that matters." They sounded confused, but also relieved, I think, to be out of the tension that had been hanging over our home for so long. News of Mark Peterson's arrest, a local businessman and seemingly respected figure, spread like wildfire through our small community. Then the rumors started. Whispers about the nature of the charges, the connection to my wife, the other man. My name was quickly attached to the scandal. I spent the next few days in deep discussions with law enforcement, providing them with the full, meticulous dossier of evidence, the videos, the audio, the financial records, the PI reports. It was overwhelming, even for them. The case against Mark, and increasingly against Holly, was rock solid. Holly tried to call me dozens of times, then texts, emails. My phone was a constant buzz. But David had instructed me to block everything, and he handled all communications. She wanted to retrieve her belongings, wanted to see the kids. But the restraining order meant no contact, no access to the house. She was cut off. I felt a profound, exhausting mix of relief and sorrow. Relief that it was over, that the truth was out, that the danger to me and my kids was mitigated. But also immense sorrow for the irrevocable breaking of my family. My marriage was gone, shattered beyond repair. My kids' lives were irrevocably altered, and there was a new kind of threat. Mark's criminal associates, the local Defense Support Services, DSS, started to monitor my property. Patrols drove by regularly. The threats weren't direct yet, but the possibility was real. My quiet life was over. From respected businessman, I had become the victim of a major betrayal, a public scandal. The scars ran deep, and I knew they would never truly heal. The immediate fallout was chaos. but it was just the beginning. The legal battles commenced, turning my life into an endless cycle of court dates, depositions, and public scrutiny. My carefully constructed world was not just broken, it was being meticulously disassembled and scrutinized under a harsh spotlight. The divorce proceedings were a bitter, drawn-out nightmare. Holly, true to form, initially tried to deny everything. She spun a wild story about me being abusive, paranoid, creating fake evidence. She tried to gaslight me in court, just like she had tried to do in private. She claimed Mark was just a friend who sometimes stayed in the guest house, that the rings were a misunderstanding, the money was for emergencies. It was disgusting. But my evidence was undeniable. David systematically laid out the surveillance footage, the clear audio recordings, the day results, the financial records, the PI reports. Holly's lawyer barely had a leg to stand on. The court quickly granted me full custody of Caleb and Grace. The judge cited Holly's infidelity, her profound negligence, her financial fraud, and the direct endangerment of the children due to her criminal activities and the murder plot. It was a victory, but a hollow one. Then came Mark Peterson's trial. It was a huge, high-profile event. The drug charges, the conspiracy charges, it was all being paraded through the media. I was a key witness. Testifying against my best friend was surreal. I recounted everything. His presence in my home, his involvement with Holly, his casual plotting of my death. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. Every detail I shared felt like ripping open a fresh wound. This is where Sarah Jenkins, my old high school friend from part one, really came into play. Her paper, the Austin Statesman, started running exclusive reports. She'd been sitting on my story, waiting for the right moment. Now, with the trials underway, she unleashed it. The details of the affair, Mark's paternity of Caleb and Grace, the shocking murder plot, it all came out. The public was absolutely stunned. My life, my private agony, became front-page news. It was humiliating, but also, in a twisted way, vindicating. Holly, facing the overwhelming evidence, was formally charged with financial fraud. The DA was also looking into conspiracy to commit harm, especially after my testimony in Mark's trial. Her legal battles were far from over. David, my lawyer, was relentless in reclaiming the assets Holly had tried to liquidate or hide. He went after every penny, every item. It was a long, arduous process, but slowly, meticulously, he clawed back what he could. The family homestead, once a sanctuary, was now a site of intense public interest, with reporters sometimes lurking outside, trying to get a glimpse of me or the kids. It felt like I was living in a fishbowl. Despite Mark's arrest, the lingering threat from his associates was real. I maintained round-the-clock security. My house was a fortress, and I hired guards for my parents' home where Caleb and Grace were staying. I wasn't taking any chances. The verdict came down for Mark, guilty on multiple counts. He received a lengthy prison sentence, effectively taking him out of our lives for the foreseeable future. A weight lifted, but the emotional damage was permanent. Holly's own legal battles continued, her freedom severely compromised, her reputation in tatters. She was facing years of court dates, likely jail time, and the permanent loss of her children. With Mark gone and Holly's fate sealed, a new, daunting task emerged, explaining everything to Caleb and Grace. They were still young, but they were smart. They'd heard whispers, seen the news. As they got older, I knew I would have to carefully, honestly, and sensitively explain the full, raw truth about their mother, about Mark, and about their own origins. It would be the hardest conversation of my life, but they deserved to know. I had to give them the tools to understand their past, no matter how painful. The journey ahead was long, but at least, for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my own narrative. The first few months were a blur of therapy sessions, school meetings, and quiet evenings with Caleb and Grace. I poured every ounce of my energy into them. They were traumatized, confused, and angry. We went to counseling together separately, whatever it took. I read them stories, helped with homework, took them fishing, just simple, normal dad stuff. I had to be their rock, their sole, unwavering parent. Our bond became unbreakable, forged in fire. Caleb, being older, understood more quickly. He was angry at first, then withdrawn. Grace struggled more, her little world shattered. But slowly, with time and therapy, they started to process it. We talked openly and honestly about their biological father, Mark, and their mother's choices. It was heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, but necessary. They deserved the truth, delivered with love and endless patience. For me, the emotional scars ran deep. The betrayal was a wound that would never fully heal, just form a thick, aching scar tissue. The gaslighting, the love bombing, the sheer audacity of their deception, it was a constant battle to not let it consume me. But I had to heal, for my kids. Sarah Jenkins, the reporter, became more than just a source for the story. She became a friend, a confidant. She helped me process everything, to articulate the pain and the triumph. Her articles, raw and unflinching, brought national attention to my case. I became a symbol for others who had suffered similar betrayals, a reluctant advocate. People reached out from all over the country, sharing their own stories, asking for advice. It was overwhelming, but it also gave me a new sense of purpose. My home, the house that had been the stage for so much pain, finally felt like mine again. I'd cleansed it of every remnant of Holly and Mark. New furniture, fresh paint, a palpable shift in energy. It was no longer a monument to betrayal, but a place of peace, a sanctuary for my kids and me. I continued to run my computer business, finding solace and purpose in the routine and the problem solving. It was a tangible way to rebuild, to create something positive. And slowly, cautiously, I started forming new connections. I wasn't looking for a romantic relationship. Not yet, maybe never, but friendship, genuine connection. That was the start. The community, initially reeling from the scandal, had rallied around me, offering unwavering support. That meant everything. Mark Peterson was serving his lengthy prison sentence. Holly's legal battles dragged on, but she eventually pleaded guilty to financial fraud and received a significant sentence, losing all parental rights. There was a profound sense of closure in seeing justice served. It didn't erase the past, but it meant they couldn't hurt us anymore. I learned that while the past can't be changed, I could absolutely shape a better future for myself and my kids. We were survivors. My story, as told by Sarah Jenkins and now by me, wasn't just about betrayal and revenge. It was a powerful testament to endurance, to the relentless pursuit of truth, and to the possibility of rebuilding, even when everything feels utterly destroyed. We were broken, but we were also stronger, and we were free. The full weight of Holly's betrayal continues to cast a long, cold shadow over my life. NGL, it's not just about the emotional scars, though those are deep and permanent. The consequences are profound and ongoing. I'm forever marked by the knowledge that my entire marriage was a carefully constructed lie, a performance for her convenience and greed. My kids, Caleb and Grace, are constantly navigating a world where their biological father is a convicted felon and their mother is in prison, a reality no child should face. I have to actively shield them from the judgment in the whispers, while also gently guiding them through the trauma of their origins. Every decision I make, every relationship I consider, is filtered through the lens of that ultimate betrayal. Trust is a luxury I may never truly afford again. This wasn't just a breakup, it was an amputation. And the phantom limb pain, it never truly goes away.